I'm happy that now, at least now, we're getting started. Okay. So, guys, welcome to this live stream. Today is a class on character design. Okay. And what do I mean by character design? Now, character design is something which starts not with the artist drawing it, right? So, what does not happen is that the artist starts, artist just gets like idea, and the artist starts drawing a game character. That is not what it is. Creating a game character is one of the most important things for a game, and it's actually a complete team effort. It's not just the designer, not just the artist, it's the entire game team that starts and creates characters. And this presentation is going to be about that. Okay, so let's talk about game characters. What exactly do game characters do? What is their function in a game? The first thing that game characters do is that game characters create immersion by identification. What exactly does it mean when you say immersion? Immersion is when you're playing a game and you're in that game. You are in the world of that game. You are not whoever you are right now, right? You are not even you're not there. You're in the game. You're in the world of the game. You're living the game. The rules of your present game world do not exist. Okay. Next, a game character allows the story to be carried forward. So whenever you're playing a game, Black Myth, Wukong, or Wukong, or whatever it is, or you're playing Splinter Cell, whatever game you're playing, the character that you are playing is actually going to take the story forward because things are going to happen to the character. That's how the story is going to go forward. Next, emotional responses. So whatever emotions the character feels, you are actually going to feel those emotions as well. Guys, are the slides going forward or are they stuck?
They are stuck. It's not full screen. We can see your PPT. Now it's going forward.
It's going now. Okay. Yeah, this is just, sorry guys, just having a bad tech day. Okay. Okay. So characters create immersion by identification. They allow the story to be carried forward. They evoke emotional responses in players, and they are the important selling points of games. And of course, they entertain. Right? One of the most important things about game characters is they actually entertain players. Right? When you're playing a game, how many times have you guys played a game or looked at a game and you've actually bought the game because of the characters of that game? It happens really often, right? Now, the next thing I want to ask, I want to open up, guys. Tell me about your favorite game characters. Name your favorite game character and describe why. So, this is for the audience. Let me know what your favorite character is and what your favorite game character is. Do let me know, please. Anybody? Mine, as you can see, is the Master Chief. He is by far my favorite character, and I would say I have two favorite characters. One is the Master Chief, and of course, the other one is Max Payne. These are by far my two favorite. Wow, looks like the screen is stuck again. Wow. Okay. This is crazy. Okay. Going forward. Okay, so let's see people's game characters. Barbarian King, Assassin's Creed Ezio, Dante, Wukong, God of War Kratos. Okay, all right. Now let's talk a little bit about what the goals of character design. So when you're trying to create a character, now remember this, guys, and this is for the artists and this is also for the designers out there. At this point, don't make a distinction between artist and designer. If you are creative in the game, whether you're an artist or designer, what are you hoping to create when you make a character, right? Firstly, the most important thing, the most important goal of character design is that the player should be able to understand the character and his her motivation. So if you're playing God of War, if you're playing Kratos, what exactly is the motivation of the character in the game? Can someone tell me? I'm sure you guys have played God of War. I'm sure you know Kratos. What is his motivation in the game? Question. Now, vengeance, exactly. He's driven by what emotion is it? What is the motivation? What makes him tick? Right now, next, if the character is playable, the player should be comfortable to be the character. So if you're playing a game, you should happily take the role of a character, which is why, for example, tomorrow, if someone shows you a game in which the main character is a little girl 5 years old, okay, and you're a dude, you might be like, no, I don't really identify with this character, which is why I don't want to play this game, because I don't want to play as a 5-year old, because I am 18 or 20-year old male and I don't identify as a 5-year old girl, right? And that's fair enough. So if the character is playable, the player should be comfortable to be the character. Okay. Now, the next goal of character design is credibility. So if you're creating a game character, the character should be credible. So players should be knowing a character through their appearance. So what do I mean by credibility? By credibility, I mean that people should think that this is a believable character, right? People should say, okay, this is a character that can exist. The character is credible. The character makes sense. The characteristics, the looks, everything about the character actually matches, right? And so, if you are creating a character, you have to think very, very deeply about that character, right? If you are creating a backstory for the character, whatever the character does in the game should match the game. It should match what the player or the player character does in the game. There should be no difference. Okay. So, for example, if your character is this really environment friendly, really woke person who likes taking care of animals and the environment, and then suddenly you show that character slaughtering and eating a goat, people are going to be like, oh, wait a minute, that's that's not credible. If this character is so environment conscious and so woke, why is this character slaughtering a goat and eating it? Like that doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? So credibility is really, really important. And note, guys, that we have not even got to the art yet. We are just talking about the characteristics of the character. Okay. Now, the next thing, the last one is appeal. The character needs to be well etched. The character needs to be strong. They don't have to be attractive. They don't have to be beautiful. Many times we've played games in which the characters are not attractive, they're not beautiful, they're not handsome, but even then we still play them, we identify with them, right? They don't have to be attractive, but they must be competently constructive, right? The attributes like body, clothing, voice, animations, facial expressions, they should all come together to express them, and they roll very, very clearly to the player. Okay, so Sayyed is asking, I can't understand between designer and artist. So Sayyed, for example, you can go and look at some videos on my YouTube channel, and in which you'll be able to understand this. Now, the last goal of character design is individuality. Remember that the character should be unique or in his or her own way. So while I'm talking, just you can keep telling me which character this is. That if you play this game, do let me know which character this is on the screen. Do let me know in the chat, right? The character should be unique in his or her own way. Okay. Even if you're creating a stereotype character, there should be some distinguishing feature about him or her. So, for example, if you guys are creating a pirate, for example, right, a pirate character. Now, if you're creating a pirate character, it's easy to have the character. The pirate is like he likes to drink and he says "R" all the time, and he's this rogue. You can create a very stereotypical character, or you can create a character, a pirate, which has something setting him apart, something different about him, which is not a normal pirate thing. For example, he likes to play the piano, he likes classical music, or he likes to paint. Now, what happens when you do that is when you're creating a character who is a pirate but who has some of these different characteristics, then people will remember that character. People will be like, oh yeah, that pirate who likes to sing. Otherwise, the pirate is going to be same as any other pirate, right? So whenever you're designing a character, try and make some very distinguished feature about them. Okay. Now let's talk about the word avatar. What exactly does avatar mean? Everyone knows avatar, what avatar means, because it's on Sanskrit. The word avatar means a character in a game who serves as a protagonist under the player's control. So which means that the avatar is controlled by the player in a game. Okay, and most action adventure games, they actually provide such a character. Okay, and players need to be motivated to step into the shoes of the avatar. Okay. um right. Next up, customization. So one of the nicest things that you can have in a game is when you can customize your character, because that really creates immersion. It means that you can customize the character to whatever you want it to be. You can customize the gender, the race, the clothing, the profession, the hair and facial features. You can have the character really look like you, feel like you, reflect who you are in the game world. Okay. Now, this is a very this is kind of like a very technical point that I'm going to make, but it's a really important point. Now, there are two different kinds of avatars. Okay. One is a specific avatar. A specific avatar is a very detailed, fleshed out character with history and personality of their own. The player is not the protagonist, but needs to identify with the specific avatar. So, what do I mean by specific avatar? Is an avatar who has a backstory, who has a history, who has you identify, like Max Payne, for example, right? Whenever, like God of War, like Kratos, for example. So when you're playing God of War, when you see Kratos, when you see the character, you learn all about that character. You learn about the back history, the family, what happened to him. You know everything about him. So what you're doing is that you say, suppose your name is Anil, Sunil, whatever. You are not Anil, Sunil anymore. You become Kratos when you're playing that game. You become Kratos because Kratos has a very strong and specific personality, a history, and you become Kratos when you're playing it. That is what is a specific avatar. A specific avatar. Now let's talk about non-specific avatar. A non-specific avatar is one who does not really have any personality. So there are some games in which you kind of join the game and there is no backstory about the character. You're just playing it. Like, anybody can anyone give me an example of a game which has a non-specific character apart from the one you're seeing on the screen? Anybody? Like you start playing a game, and suddenly you're San Andreas. Right, exactly. So there's no backstory, right? There's no backstory in the game. You join the game, and no, you just a person, and there's no history about that person, no personality of that person or anything. Exactly. Temple Run, all these, exactly. So what happens in that case is that you, say, suppose whoever you are, Anil, Sunil, whatever your name is, you are playing the game. You project yourself, you project your own past personality into the game, because the non-specific avatar is basically like an empty shell, right? You don't identify with the game character, you become the game character, because the game character, the non-specific avatar, is kind of like a empty shell that you go into. Okay. Now, I did tell you that this was going to be a pretty, like a deep dive into character design. So here you go. Okay. Now, when it comes to Avatar, there are two different kinds of control that the player can have. The first one is direct control. So, whenever you're playing a 3D game or you're playing a top down game in which you have a character, what you do is you directly move that character. You move the character. You are that character. So, if you move forward, the character moves forward on the joystick or the PC or the controller or whatever it is, right? You are controlling the player. You are the player and you're moving forward and backward, right? Next, you have something called indirect control. So, what is indirect control? The player clicks on a certain point and the avatar walks there of his own accord. So, in RTSs, for example, you are not the avatar. You are actually indirectly controlling. So, you click on a point on the map, right? You click on the map, and then the character actually moves to that point in the map. That is called indirect control. So, once again, we have two kinds of character control. We have a direct control and we have indirect control. Okay, now that we have understood the basics of of characters, now let's get into the actual design. Let's get into the actual design of a game character, how you are going to build a game character. Now, remember one thing, guys, that as I said before, even if you are an artist, particularly if you are an artist, now, if you want to build a game character, if you want to be a game artist, but you want to be a world class game artist, okay, and I'm talking about the standards. Everyone says they want to go to, Blizzard, they want to go to the US, they want to join all these fancy game studios. If you want to join all these big AAA companies all over the world as a game artist or a game designer, this next part is very, very important for you, because you don't just create the art of a character, you actually create the backstory and the character of a character, so to speak, before you actually start drawing it. Okay. Now, fundamentally, there are two kinds of design. First is something which is called art driven character design. Okay. What exactly is art driven character design? In art driven character design, first thing you do is you create a character from their visual appearance. So you're not thinking about the character's backstory, you're not thinking about their how they are, the narrative, their childhood, their character. You are just creating the physical appearance of a character. Like Mario, for example. Mario was created to a certain visual style. First, they created the character and then they created the backstory, because they wanted a character to be cute, kind of short, have a certain appearance. So, first, they created a sketch and then they created the backstory of the character, right? Normally, these characters, art driven character design, they do not exhibit a complex personality, and they do not change much during the course of the game, whether behaviorally or visually. So they're pretty much the same. They're very simple characters, right? They're not complex characters. They don't have a complex personality, right? Now, the nice thing is that they look very nice. They look very bright. they're very easy to exploit when it comes to media like comic books, toys, and movies. Okay, so fundamentally, you have art driven character design, which is Mario, for example. And then let's talk about story driven character design. So, what exactly is story driven character design? So, when you're making a story driven character, you don't even start sketching the character first. First, you think about the character, where the character is created using visual and behavioral design techniques, which means that first you think of the story, then you think of the gameplay, you think of the theme, you think of everything about the character. And then once that is done, then you can start building the character from scratch, right? So story driven characters are much more complex. They have complex personalities, such as Assassin's Creed or God of War. You don't just start creating a character, you really think a lot about the backstory. You think about how the personality of the characters, and then you start creating characters, the sketches. So that is story driven character. Guys, don't you take notes. This is a live stream, is going to be on my YouTube channel forever. So don't no need to take notes. Sit, just sit back, um, and just understand this stuff. Okay. Don't worry about taking notes. You can go back and you can watch this live stream anytime you want. Okay. Now now let's talk about the different kind of physical types of the character. Just let me drink some water. Hmm. So let's talk about character physical types. Now, character physical, firstly, you have a humanoid. Now, what is a physical type? Now, this is very, very important for the artists. Okay. Um, yeah, we teach all this stuff in Gamer to Maker within the art program. But if you're not in Gamer to Maker, at least get this information. It will be very useful to you guys in your career. Um, So, a humanoid is a character whose form is based on the human body. They have two arms, two legs, and one head. So, if you can see, they may not be humans. Now, humanoid does not mean human. So, as you can see, there's this wolf over there. The wolf also has two arms, the wolf has two legs, and the wolf has one head. So, it's not a human, but it's a humanoid because they walk upright, they have eyes, mouth, hands, feet, and a head. So they kind of like human. They are humanoid. You understand? That is humanoid. Next, let's talk about non-humanoid. So a character that does not have a resemblance, a physical resemblance to humans is called a non humanoid character. Okay. Now, for example, that weird looking dinosaur thingy is nothing like a human because it doesn't have arms, it has horns, it has these two weird legs, and it has a huge tail. So it's nothing like a human. It's a non humanoid. Similarly, the robo thingy at the mech warrior kind of guy, he's got two legs, and that's no, that's not his wiener, that's a gun. Okay, and he looks nothing like a human. So any character which is shaped like a vehicle or a machine or an animal or a monster is actually a non-humanoid. Okay, next up, monsters. So what's the thing? The monsters are like this really really interesting characters because they what's the whole point of a monster character is that you should look at the monster and you should be like, oh my god, holy shit, like you have to be scared. So designing a monster is something you have to do, that whenever a player is looking at that character, the player should go, oh fuck, this thing's gonna eat me. At a very deep level, the human brain should feel fear when looking at a character. Okay. Because so how do you design a monster? The monster should have a very different kind of facial arrangement with extreme proportions. You look at this monster. He has this huge weird head. He has this elongated weird ridge thing. He has this super scary teeth, and he has these black eyes which are kind of set on the side, and he has this weird scaly reptilian skin. So everything about him scares animals, because see, you have to remember, humans, we have, now of course we have guns and we pretty much dominate the entire human race. But back in the day, our brain remembers lions, tigers, predators. So anything that you create which reminds our brain of a predator is going to be scary, right? Claws, fangs, oozing slime, and an exoskeleton. All these things make a monster character scary. So if you're designing a monster, you have to think about how the human brain is. What does a human brain find scary? Snakes, lizard, slime, big teeth, all that stuff. You have to think of what scares you. You have to think of what scares human beings, and then you have you have to design it. Okay, now that we've gone over the different kinds of monster types, I want to talk a little bit about cartoony characters. Okay, now when it comes to cartoony characters, these are also really important, because a lot of games that you're going to be playing now are going to actually have cartoony characters that you're going to have to make. And fundamentally, there are three different types of cartoony characters. The first kind is cool, right? Now, these characters, they'd never get too upset, okay? Because they're bosses. They're always cool, they're always under control, and they are never at a loss as to what to do. They're often showing sunglasses, their body language is languid, they are clever, wisecracking, and they use their wits, they use their brains, they are smart rather than strength to overcome a situation. Anybody give me an idea of a cool cartoony character? Anyone? Anyone? Cool cartoony characters? Okay, let me know in the comments. Okay, next let's move to tough. Now, a tough cartoony character. Now, these guys are usually big. Okay, they're strong. Sonic, exactly. Avite Visuals has mentioned Sonic. You got it exactly right. Um, tough cartoony characters, they signify physical aggression, right? They're mostly male. They're drawn with like big. They have big arms. They have big hair. They are tough. They are strong, and they use like big gestures. And they tend to talk with their fists. And they usually hypersexualize. What is hypersexualize? Hypersexualize, like if it's a dude, he's gonna have like really big muscles, right? He's going to be like 8 feet tall, 7 feet tall, like the Master Chief. He's going to be this big guy, and his arms are going to be like the size of my waist, right? Um, so so that's it. That's hypersexualization. So cartoony characters are tough, and they're like strong in these guys. Okay. Next up, cartoony characters, cute. Now, the human brain always, and not just human brain, any living being always looks at, you know why babies are cute? Babies are cute because they appeal to that part of our brain which is, oh, we want to protect them, we don't want to harm them, we don't want to eat them, right? So cartoony characters, they are drawn with the proportions of human babies. They have large eyes, they have oversized heads, they have rounded bodies, they have soft bodies, they have fur. Okay. um that's it. So if you want to design a cartoony character, these are the things, these are the proportions that you have to keep in mind. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about Goofy. Now, what are goofy characters? What is a goofy character? Goofy character, it's like a comedic kind of character. They have odd proportions, they walk funny, they look weird, their behavior is comedic, Like they're cool characters, they don't get upset, but they're awkward as hell, right? They make you laugh, right? Give me some ideas, give me some examples of some goofy characters from games or anything else, and I'll let you know. Okay. um Okay, so moving forward, now hypersexualization of characters, right? Everyone talks about this. Everyone talks about, like, female characters wearing like skimpy armor and all that. So what basically what is that? That is called hypersexualization of characters. So what is hypersexualization? This is a practice of exaggerating the sexual attributes of men and women to in order to make them more appealing. So it's like if you have a character who's a woman who has huge breasts and a super narrow waist, which is not really realistic for an actual human, then that is called hypersexualization. Okay. Similarly, for a dude, right? Now, Duke Nukem is like this guy with like huge arms and massive chest and really tall, like hyper, um, super hyper masculine guy with huge arms and like very rough voice and all that kind of thing. So people like this, men and women like this, don't really exist, but they are hypersexualized. And the thing is that I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily. Now, it's okay to kind of create hyper sexualized characters, but there has to be a reference for it. There has to be context for it. Like, you can try and sell a game on the basis of this, but it probably won't work if you don't have good gameplay and story, right? So people say you shouldn't hypersexualize characters, and I don't think that's the case. There is no good or bad. You can hypersexualize characters if you need to, but it should be consistent with the theme and the story of your game, right? If you're going to try and sell your game on the basis of hypersexualized characters, it's probably not going to work. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so what time is it? All right, I think we have 5 or 10 minutes left. Okay, very very important part. We are entering the last part, but very very important part of character design. Now, building great characters, let's talk about clothing, weapons, symbolic objects, and names. Right now, remember that a character's clothing and props uniquely identifies a character. It's very important to tell different characters apart, especially in quick reaction games like shooters, right? Each and every character in the game should have his or her own individual style that fits really well within the context of the story, game, and world. So, designing characters, they have to be differentiated, they have to be distinctive, they have to be specific. Okay? Okay, so let's do a character study of Indiana Jones. Okay, I'm old, right? So you guys probably don't even know Indiana Jones, most of you, but he was one of my favorite characters, movie characters growing up, and then he also has a few video games. Also, let's talk about it. So let's talk about Indiana Jones. Now, he has a very distinctive hat. Okay, so it's his trademark. Indiana Jones hat is his hat. Everyone knows him by his hat. Okay, next, his clothes are kind of semi-military. He has like khaki pants, khaki shirts. So he kind of looks kind of like an unofficial military guy. So you think of him as, okay, firstly, he's very distinctive. He has that hat, and when you see those kind of clothes, he looks adventurous. He looks like an explorer. He looks like someone brave and someone who's not afraid, right? Next up, look at his leather jacket. Now, what is his leather jacket? Firstly, his leather jacket, shoes, belt, they're stylish. It looks good. He's like, wow, this is a stylish guy. He's a good looking guy. He can travel the world. He can speak to women. He's smooth. So he's a good looking guy. He appeals from the visual aspect also, right? Now he has a whip. The whip is a very interesting accessory that he has because it shows resourcefulness. Whip is actually something which you actually use to whip animals or horses or whatever it is, but he very rarely uses it like that. So he has a whip. Now remember that whenever someone's designing this character, they could have easily given him a machine gun. They could have given him a machete. They could have given him a knife, but they gave him a whip. What does it show? Sometimes he uses whip to like grab something and pull it to him. The whip shows that he's resourceful. It shows that he can use A to do B and C. It shows that he's a jugadu guy, right? That is what the whip is showing. So the whole point of the exercise is to show you everything that Indiana Jones is wearing, the color of his clothes, his whip, his accessories, his hat, his shoes, his belt, his bag, the material of his jacket. Everything is very, very specific. It's not by chance. Nobody just woke up and said, you know what? I think I'm going to create a guy. I'm going to give him a hat and a jacket and a pants. No, everything, every single thing about this character was designed, planned very, very carefully. And this is what I mean by design. You say, I don't understand design. Design is thinking about everything. Design is thinking about the backstory, the visual appearance, the effect that this character is going to have on players, the psychology, and then you get into the visual part, the drawing part. Everything matters. This is character design. You're not just going to take a pen and start sketching a character. You have to think of all these things. Okay. Next up, revolver. His weapon is a revolver, so it's a short range weapon that he doesn't like to use much. Okay, he, I mean, they could have given him an AK-47 or a rifle, right? But he's basically not a violent guy. He doesn't like to kill people. In only in like emergencies, he uses his revolver. He doesn't like to use it much. So it's what does it say about him? He's a good guy. You know, he only uses violence when he has to. Okay, so that's the funda of Indiana Jones. So whenever you guys are creating characters, I encourage you to think very deeply about the character, what the character is like, you know, everything about that character. Go really deep into the backstory, the psychology, the visuals, what you want the players to think about that character, feel about that character, and then you start to develop the visual appearance of the character, right? Okay, now how much time do we have? I think I can do this is really long. This is like a very, very, very long presentation. I think I'm probably going to do like part 1 and part 2. Okay, so I think I will stop here um for today, and probably gonna have, hopefully I'll fix my camera soon, and I'm probably gonna have another character design class soon. So right here, guys, this is actually available for all the Spartans. This is part of the character design module in Gamer to Make a Game Design. And I decided to have this masterclass because I wanted to kind of share this knowledge with you guys. Okay, um so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few questions. So, sir, if I'm learn all software, all Unity, don't go to be a game designer degree. See, here's the thing. People say that if I learn Blender, I'm going to get a job. If I learn Maya, I'm going to get a job. Okay. So here's the thing. Imagine that I teach you how to use a paintbrush. I buy a paintbrush for you, and I get you a box of paint. And I say, okay, this is a paintbrush. You have to dip the paintbrush into this box of paint and you have to paint. That's how you do it. So I've shown you the tools. I've shown you how to use the tools. Are you going to be, are you Michelangelo? Are you Picasso? Are you? Just because you know how to use a brush and know how to dip it into a tin of paint, does that make you a great painter? No, it doesn't. What makes you a great painter? What makes you great is what you do, the skills that you get. So I want you people to stop thinking that if you learn Blender or if you learn Maya, if you learn Unity, you're going to become great because you know the tool. No one gives a fuck about the tool. Anybody can download a tool from the internet and learn how to use it from a YouTube video. That does not make you an artist. That does not make you a designer. Your thinking process, your mind, your attitude, your mindset, your skills, that's what makes you an artist or designer. Do you understand? So just learning tools is, yeah, exactly. Mac and Arena are like the amount of pain I've seen people go through just because they promise all kinds of shit. They take lakhs of rupees, and the number of people who I see who have joined these institutes spend lakhs of rupees, and after that they have nothing. Like, they just have the same portfolio as everyone else. They know the same tools. They have no job opportunities, nothing. It's really, really sad. Okay. It's really sad. So anyway, I'm gonna stop here for now. Also, I'm kind of irritated because my camera is not working. So I'm gonna kind of end the stream now. Hopefully, in another week or two, I will have part two of this with my camera working. So thank you guys for being here. Maybe I can take another. Maybe I can take another. Um, so maybe I can take another question. How would you decide the poly count for detailed design character black myth book counts? The poly count is decided by the programmers, right? What the poly count is, you get a poly budget. Okay. Um, all right. Chalo, guys. Thank you so much. And see you guys on the Discord server. And make sure that you guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, and also follow me on Instagram because you'll get all the updates from everywhere. Okay. So thank you guys. Have a good night. Have a great weekend, and happy Ganesh Chaturthi to all of you. Bye, everyone.